My name's Juliana, and where do I begin? My husband Craig and I decided to move our lives and our son to the island of Sardinia in Italy, my father's homeland. Join us on our new journey as I share my culture, heritage and passion for all things Simply Sardinian. Hello everyone and welcome to 2025. So I hope you all had a great start to the new year. We've had a really busy start to the new year, and Craig and I have actually been sitting having some chats and sort of reflecting on what life has been like for us and all the big changes that we've had in 2024. And yeah, it's actually been quite amazing the amount of things that we've actually got achieved, what plans we have for 2025 moving forward, and I think it's going to be quite a full and exciting year. So what did we really do in 2024? Well, apart from really moving into Sardinia from Australia and sort of finalising lots of things about our old life in Australia and making a fresh one here in a completely different country, we also built this little house. We have obviously got this little house and a family home, which is in the other town. And we have very recently signed all the contracts to start building another property next door to the property that we have in the other town. And yeah, it's going to be full on and really exciting. So I thought I would go through and sort of explain what the advantages and the pitfalls are of buying property in Italy, as there's different ways that you can acquire property in Italy. It's not always just a straightforward sale. So there are a few different ways where property can be acquired in Italy. It's not always just a straightforward sale. There's probably too many for me to go through. However, there are lots of pitfalls if you're not really sure what the process is here, because it does vary differently to, for example, Australia and the UK. You normally go through a real estate agency. They deal with the paperwork. You obviously engage in your lawyer, a solicitor, to have a look at things, and you get your building and pest report done. I know this for Australia anyway. In the UK, you would have a surveyor out to have a look at it. And here in Italy, it is just different. It is really different. And unless you have someone who can give you really good advice that you trust, there's lots of different ways that you can run into problems, and problems that can cost you money. So I thought I would just concentrate, because there's so many different areas that I could go into and that would take up probably another 2 or 3 videos. So I thought I would just concentrate on what the process was in buying this property. So I touched on this little cottage a few videos back about how we found this property, what led us to buy this property, and really the process that's involved in it. So this property is in a different little town from the town that we actually live in, and it was a property that Craig actually found while we were in Australia. He was just scouring the internet one night, we were in bed, we were actually trying to renovate the main family home from Australia. So I had done lots of flights back and forward, trying to project manage from a different country, which I absolutely would not encourage or advise anyone to do. But we sort of got our training wheels on and learned a lot through that process, which made this process and this property so much easier, so much smoother. We knew what the process was from A to Z. We knew the questions to ask. We knew the documents that were required, and basically I think we learned a bit more about doing our own due diligence and what was actually involved in buying a property in Italy. So this property was purchased through an agency. So Craig had saw this property for sale and it cost a ridiculous amount of money. It was €12,000, which was crazy because you can hardly buy a second-hand car for €12,000 and never mind a property. And we were going back to 2018, I think we purchased this property. So looking at what the prices were then, pre-COVID and all the rest of it, you know, this was really, really cheap. For us, this was really cheap. It was also an expense which I didn't particularly want to pay out on because we had obviously the build costs from the other property. But anyway, we came on holiday a few months later. We parked up the car. I was going into a supermarket to go and grab some groceries, and unbeknownst to me, I'd actually parked the car in front of the real estate agents. So when I came back to the car, Craig was already in the agency. He'd found the little picture of this property in the window and taken it upon himself to go and get an appointment to see the property. And yeah, so that is really where the story started with this property. I don't know if it was fate or whatever, but that was the start of the cottage in Zediani.
So this is the little house that we bought in a beautiful little village called Zediani on the west coast of Sardinia. It is a fantastic little village. I'll show you some footage of that later. But we now have the plans approved and we've got the geometry here today. Juliana's with the geometry just now. You can see it's got all the old cane on the roof. It's just some building materials left over from our last project. Juliana saved these beautiful little chairs. And we've got the original doors, shutters. As you can see, the walls are literally made of straw and mud. So we're going to open this right up so that these two rooms nearly become one, because this was the original kitchen. The fireplace is going to be kept. We're going to open it up there, there, and this will become a living room stroke kitchen. I think we've just found out we're allowed to raise the height of the ceiling.
Oh, you've done a good job.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well,
it's no ditch, you don't make the ditch.
Yeah.
Took me to stone.
So these go into this room here. This will be another bedroom with a Velux in the ceiling. Original pavement. Oh my gosh, look. And then the third bedroom, stroke like little kids' room. This ceiling is what we just discovered is now the height is going to be 2 meters 10. So it won't slant because it gets rather... I can barely stand up at this end. Cute little window. Again, original pavement here. I don't know how well we're going to be able to save any of these. They're in pretty poor condition, but if we can't save what's here, we will try and buy original items from elsewhere. There seems to be plenty on the island.
So when you buy a property through an agency in Italy, I didn't quite realise that the buyer is also responsible for the agent's fees, the real estate agent's fees. So in the UK and Australia, when you buy property through a real estate agency, which is 99.9% the most normal way to buy a property, it is the vendor that engages with the agent, and obviously they have their commission, their fees and whatever. It doesn't really touch the buyer. Here in Italy, through our experience, it is the other way around. So that was certainly a cost that we didn't really anticipate on. We just thought, okay, the property is advertised for €12,000. Obviously you have your legal fees and whatever on top, and that would be it. No, it wasn't it. So when we were buying this property, the first thing that you have to do is engage with a notaio. Now the notaio, or the notary solicitor, they're not a lawyer, they're actually chosen by the buyer, the vendor. So if the vendor says, this is my notaio that we're going to use for all the contracts and all the legal stuff, you can't turn around and say, well, no, actually, I'm not using that one, I'm using my own one. You have to go along with them. We were really, really lucky because the notaio that we had to use for this property has become our notaio now, that we use for even buying the other land and different things. He is really, really good. And I also think that was fate that, you know what, we're introduced to a really good notaio, because that is super, super important. The second thing is you need a geometra. Now a geometra is a bit like they do a bit of everything, and really I think it's only Italy that has a geometra. So I think it translates to a surveyor, building inspector. They do a bit of architect stuff, but they're not an architect, so they can do plans and drawings. You basically can and shouldn't buy a property without having a geometra to do all the due diligence. So making sure that the property is actually registered properly with the council, that the plans, the actual floor plan that you are buying is a floor plan that is registered with the council, that there hasn't been any illegal or abusivo structures built that aren't included in the floor plan. So an example of abusivo, which we ran into, was with a family home. So it's clean, swept out. We're going to go downstairs. I haven't cleaned the windows or the floor yet, but it's all swept out and emptied. This is all that remains. Forgot to take the picture down. Here's outside. All cleared. Clear. So Manelli's taking in for his friend's pigs. Still got to be everything's been kept. And then we go through to the kitchen and the bathroom, which now smells of bleach. Better smell than piss. And then we go into the courtyard. So our family home has been in our family for the best part of 70 years now. It was a little property which was purchased by my grandparents way back when, and over the years there had been renovations, there had been add-ons built, and yes, when we took over the property was a fairly big property. It's a Campidanese house, which is quite an old style, sort of Spanish style property, where they're quite long and narrow and can be quite dark as well, with quite high ceilings. And what had happened was, over the years, where my grandparents had started with this little property of 2 rooms and a big courtyard, over the years have obviously had to expand the property, and rooms were just added on as and when they needed to be added on, not always with planning permission. So when Craig and I took over the house was double-storey, had 3 bedrooms, an outside bathroom. It had a large entry hall reception room. It had a hallway with a staircase. It had a lounge dining, and then it had the kitchen at the back. The main bedroom, the master bedroom upstairs, had quite a large, beautiful balcony on it. So we thought, this is great. This is going to be a family home holiday. So that was our experience with our first ever property abroad, doing, renovations. The properties in a centro storico. So what we wanted and what we could have were 2 completely different things, and everything is totally reliant and dependent on the actual councillor, the comune, saying to you, yes, you can have this, or if you have this, it has to be done in this way, with this colour, with this material. So we really learned a lot, and I think, looking back, was it stressful? Yes, it was. Was it expensive? Totally, because we were in Australia trying to do this here, so there was a lot of flights involved and coming back and forth, but we certainly learned so much. We learned really who we could trust, who we felt was professional, who listened to us, and it allowed us to then assemble a really good team behind us when we were doing this property last year. So the difference between, I would say, this property and the last one definitely was a team that we had. We didn't engage with the same team that we had on the family home. We had a totally different team for this property. We had a new geometer who has been great. Notaio, we kept the same because he was all really good. He's got a really good reputation. He's been around for a long time, and we've just felt really comfortable with him. And a new team of builders. So this process was a lot smoother than the first property. I think the major difference as well was also what we were trying to do in the other property. It wasn't a knockdown rebuild. It was basically trying to scrape back everything to its bare bones and sort of try and drag it through the 21st century. We had to put in new plumbing, new drainage, new sewage system, new electrics, basically everything on top of the cost of having to demolish quite a large part of the property. And yeah, it was costly. There was a lot of hidden costs There was a lot of hidden issues, a lot of things you can't see until you start ripping things back or digging under the ground and actually seeing what's there. So there was a lot of hidden surprises and hidden costs, and I think it just made the process a lot more stressful than what it needed to be. So we learned a lot coming here. We had this little property. It's not huge, it's only about 50 square meters. It was made with crude mud bricks, like the mud and horsehair and straw, and basically really, really crude materials. I just wanted to thank everyone for subscribing, for liking the videos. I've had lots of comments. I hope that this first video of the new year is a little bit informative as to what our journey has been for the last year in buying the properties and doing them up and renovating them. If anyone's got any questions, feel free to drop a comment or whatever it is in the comments section, and I'll try my best to get back. I'm not a professional, I can only give you what our experience has been on renovating properties in Sardinia.